Hello everyone and welcome to our Enterprise Ireland UK webinar, the UK packaging sector opportunities and challenges for Irish suppliers. My name is Kevin Fennelly. I'm a market advisor for Enterprise Ireland here in the UK. Thanks everyone for joining. Over the next 45 minutes or so, we'll take a look at the UK packaging sector and how it stands today in the wake of Brexit and COVID. We'll also take a look to the future of the sector, focusing on the sustainability landscape here in the UK and how you as an Irish supplier can best engage with your UK buyer audience going forward. We're delighted to be joined by Andrew Finch, UK packaging consultant, as our keynote speaker today. Andrew has over 30 years experience in UK packaging, working for brands like Taylor's of Harrogate, Glanbia and Mars, to name a few. Andrew is now working with Northern Life Sciences as a consultant across food and drink and pharma packaging projects. And we'd like to thank him for joining us today and I look forward to his insights. But first, before I hand you over to Andrew, a couple of housekeeping pieces from our Enterprise Ireland side. Firstly, a brief introduction to our work in the UK, if you don't know. Many of you will know, of course, we are the Irish Development Agency for Trade and Innovation, supporting over 5,000 Irish companies. This is done through our head office in Dublin, with 40+ international offices also across the world. Here in the UK, we have offices in London and here in Manchester, where our sector specialists support our Irish companies with market intelligence and knowledge coming out of the UK and work with UK companies to help them source their next innovation coming out of Ireland. Following today's webinar, along with slides, today's presentation will be shared with all attendees and registrants. And finally, if you have any questions throughout today's webinar, please do pop them in the questions tab to the end of your screen and I can pose them to Andrew at the allotted Q&A time at the end. Once again, delighted to have everyone on the webinar today and delighted to have you on the call today, Andrew. Without any further ado, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Kevin. So hello all, good morning. Thank you for attending today's Enterprise Ireland webinar. I'm Andrew Finch. As Kevin mentioned, I have more than 30 years experience in packaging, working within the supply chain, developing packaging solutions with suppliers, together with category and commercial management. I've worked in both brands and own label packaging, latterly with Taylor's in Yorkshire Tea and Taylor's Coffee as R&D packaging manager, leading the sustainable packaging program and supplier development. I'd previously worked in Finley's tea and coffee, which is private label, and I've also worked with Glanbia Nutrition, Marlow Foods, Quorn, Nestle and Mars, to name but a few, in the food category. I've also extensive experience in pharma, medical devices and healthcare. I worked with GSK as a consultant. I'd worked with Baxter Healthcare as European packaging manager, 12 years in the European supply chain there, and spent a lot of time working out of the Castlebar plant in County Mayo. Also worked with NAP Pharmaceuticals and Celerity ex-J&J medical devices. As Kevin mentioned, I'm currently working with Enterprise Ireland as a freelance consultant affiliated to Northern Life Sciences Limited, and that's here in the northeast of England. So that needs to go back up one. So without further ado, we'll get on with the presentation. So this is the UK packaging sector opportunities and challenge for Irish suppliers. Apologies if you find that there's an emphasis on plastics and flexibles. That is the most challenging area that we currently have in packaging. I will be talking through other packaging structures. We don't have an open-ended session here, so this is going to be an overview. Please do not hesitate to contact me post the webinar if you wish to discuss further. So the state of the UK market post-COVID Brexit. So we have post-Brexit optimism. In fact, with Brexit, it was about just like coming into the new millennium. Nothing very much happened. All of the preparation was in place. All of the increased admin burden is being managed, and things are actually going very well in the UK economy as it recovers from COVID. There's significant growth this year and expected to recover to pre-COVID levels in 2022. Also, the optimism is coupled with significant capex in the pipeline, which will now come to fruition. So that investment that's been planned through the last couple of years will now be coming to the fore. So we have a buoyant packaging market in FMCG and grocery. Particularly online, we will have seen that in e-commerce things have been, very positive, but also in retail and grocery, very buoyant again marketplace. But for the food manufacturers buying the packaging in food and beverages, it's really been a period in COVID of increased volumes as the companies have focused on supply to retail with the mainline production. This has led to increased line efficiencies and increased profits, which has very much been related to the lack of promotional activity and prices being held quite high through 2020 and 2021. As people return to work now from working from home, these are going to be leaner operations. We've had the frontline production workers producing food and beverages for the marketplace. As the support operations return to work, I anticipate that we're going to lose significant numbers within business. They're going to be more leaner, focused operations. And also people will be choosing to take other jobs or with career moves, and that will be kind of an attritional reduction of numbers within companies. And also the packaging supply chains are under review. This is like through the Brexit process where we've been looking at supply, continuity of supply, sustainability of businesses, and the sustainability of the packaging. It's also been about the price pressures that we've seen at the end of 2020, quarter one of 2021. And it's meant that many of the UK packer fillers are reviewing the supply chains at present. This is a quick look at the UK economy. It comes from the Office of National Statistics, only issued on Friday, so this is quite up to date. It shows that we've got significant recovery since COVID, which is on the right-hand side. And by quarter, month by month, the economy is in recovery. And it does remain at present at 3% below the pre-pandemic level of February 2020. But we anticipate by the end of this year that it will be back to parity, and then the economy will continue to significantly grow. If I may, I'll just take you on to the more relevant marketplace in retail sales. So as COVID came in spring of 2020, there was, you'll recall, the panic buying, which meant in retail, significant purchase of food, stuffs. It then leveled off to consistently high level throughout the pandemic, throughout COVID. And then latterly, as we come into 2021, we have a slight decline as the out-of-home food services, hospitality come to the fore. So as the economy opens up, we've got greater food and beverage activity getting a boost from consumers in restaurants, pubs, and cafes. But basically, it shows, just how robust and buoyant the marketplace is. So opportunities for Irish packaging providers in the market. The EU packaging supply chains are under review. As I mentioned earlier, it's all about business sustainability and business continuity. So UK packer fillers and food manufacturers are looking at their packaging suppliers right now. And the UK packaging converters that the Irish packaging providers will be in competition with are also impacted by the EU supply post-Brexit, because many of their films and component materials are coming from the EU zone. We have price inflation, price increases that are also putting pressure on the supply chain, which leads to a review of the packaging supplier base. There's obviously been significant demand in corrugate and board in Q1 of this year, which is linked to e-commerce and Amazon and such like. But that interrupted supply or pressure on supply leads to a review of the packer fillers of their current supplier base. So traditional UK business and cultural ties with Ireland means that the Irish packaging providers have an advantage over the remainder of the EU. I mean, we're talking here about some EU suppliers like Amcor, Gerosa, Goglio, Constantia, companies within Italy and further afield in Greece and such like. They don't have the same historical traditional ties with the UK, and nor do they have the lean geographical advantage of the supply chain there. So, and also it's been proved that it's been in Brexit, the administration load for both suppliers and customers is manageable, in the rules of origin, customs, import declarations, supplementary declarations, etc., use of intermediaries, VAT, tax, customs clearance. All of this is manageable, but I feel that Ireland are managing to a greater extent relative to other EU businesses. So that's an advantage. Also, the sustainable packaging solutions that are required within the UK today opens up new opportunities. This is the drive for packaging solutions from suppliers, and suppliers that are not adapting or responding or unable to supply are going to be phased out and new suppliers brought in. So this is an opportunity for Irish packaging providers. So we come on to the latest demands from the UK multiples and key industry stakeholders, basically with WRAP, CFlex, the retailers and the UK government regulatory on packaging. It's all about packaging sustainability. So sustainability is the greatest driver in the UK plastic and wider packaging market. Major change programs to move to more sustainable packaging solutions creates a significant opportunity for Irish packaging suppliers to engage with UK packaging users. So on the WRAP commitments, the WRAP is the Waste and Resource Action Programme. I'm sure that many of you will be familiar with these targets. It's going to, WRAP either directly or indirectly impacts all of the UK food and drink industry. So, companies that are using plastic packaging are linked to the WRAP commitments, and these have to be met, non-negotiable by 2025. More than 80 leading companies are signatories, including all the major retailers, brand owners, and packer fillers. So even if you're not a signatory or a member of WRAP, would certainly be impacted by this if you're in the UK market. So the WRAP objective is for PAC members to eliminate problematic plastics. This is their declaration, reducing the total amount of packaging on supermarket shelves, stimulate innovation and new business models, and help build a stronger recycling system in the UK. Together, we will ensure that plastic packaging is designed so it can easily be recycled and made into new products and packaging, and with the support of governments, ensure consistent UK recycling is met. Obviously, there's a big gap to what their ambitions are with the present status. So beyond WRAP, we have CFlex, which is the pan-European initiative, the circular economy for flexible packaging. So CFlex have done some tremendous work outlining the roadmap to a circular economy. They've issued comprehensive guidelines which is designing for a circular economy, recyclability of polyolefin-based flexible packaging. The C-Flex work is way beyond what RAP have been capable of. And so for that reason, RAP have actually recently announced that they'll be adopting the C-Flex circular design guidelines. So C-Flex will be working with Repack Ireland or vice versa to, as part of this collaboration of European companies and associations. And the fundamental aim is to have ensure that all flexible packaging in Europe is circular by 2025. So similar to RAP, but it goes a little bit beyond that. And circular economy is the new byword. And for the food and drink packaging users, it's now all about circular design and the new mantra of circular in and circular out. We see the labeling there for that. So circular in, circular out, the design principles. Basically, circular outputs are really quite straightforward. It's all about recyclability, and already they are the aims and ambitions of all companies within the supply chain. But circular inputs is a little bit beyond that and more challenging. So circular inputs make use of materials already in circulation, or those which can be replenished, and include those made from recycled content or made from renewable resource. So that's, oil-based plastics are out for a start. So for plastics, this is recycled or bio plant-based solutions. Well, that's all well and good, but of course the challenge is that, with bio resins and such like, the technical specifications, the availability, the cost, the increase in packaging use that also is associated with increased recycled content, and then food contact. It's a big challenge, and this is really quite contemporary, but it is the new mantra that you'll hear an awful lot of: circular in and circular out. We come on to the retailer programs. Again, many of you will be familiar with Tesco, with their traffic light system. They were actually leaders in driving the UK sustainability program. It's obviously come and gone with retailers, where they do a lot of grandstanding and look for taking the high ground and find some sort of business position on all of this. But Tesco really were authentic on this, I believe. I attended their launch in August 2019, when they invited 1,500 own label and brand suppliers to listen to David Lewis, the Tesco Group Chief Executive of that time, to outline the Tesco plans and to launch this traffic light system. But basically, they wanted to remove all non-recyclable and hard to recycle materials, and where it can't be removed, reduce to absolute minimum, explore new opportunities to reuse, and ensure that it's all recycled as part of a closed loop. So own label suppliers were expected to comply by the end of the year, that was 2019, and brands by early 2020. So suitability of packaging would be assessed as part of category reviews and ranging decisions. So if you weren't in the green part, they were going to use a big stick. And actually, I've witnessed this in that when new product launches were being, range reviews, new designs were actually put to Tesco, they would put pressure on in listings, number of facings on shelf, pricing and promotion, if you were not in compliance of these guidelines. So I pull out from this the on flexibles. The only flexibles that they have in green are paper, glassine, and it's the mention of PE being recycled front of store. So the intention of Tesco was to move everything that was in amber to red, but in due course, but consultation with the suppliers has mitigated that. But basically, we will be talking more about, what's happening in the plastics area, but actually in flexibles, the only monopolymer that's acceptable to Tesco's, who are leading this initiative, is PE, collected front of store. So we have a snapshot view of the retailer programs here. I took a number of suppliers. So Tesco, as we've talked about here, PE recycling front of store, widespread throughout the UK. And we have on-pack labelling for PE recycling in that way. So some accepted on-pack labelling there. But actually from March 2021 to quite recently, they've started to collect mixed plastics through 171 stores. And this is mainly focused on polypropylene. So we're moving here from PE being the only show in town to polypropylene. So they're collecting bread bags, fruit and vegetable packaging, crisp packs, salad bags, and baby and pet food pouches. So in the absence of curbside collections in the UK, this will be the biggest recycling initiative in the UK to date. And Tesco expect to be able to recycle all of this packaging. They piloted the initiative through 10 stores, and the recyclate that they collected, they produced food grade packaging for a selection of Tesco own label cheeses. So an admirable initiative. And similarly, Sainsbury's are collecting the PE front of store, and the new initiative now is to collect and recycle polypropylene packaging. So piloting over 64 stores in the northeast of England, and they plan to go nationwide at the end of this year. Co-op have been leaders in collecting mixed plastics. They've been doing it for a considerable length of time, probably before September 2020, but they formalised the scheme to collect all types of clean plastics at collection points in 50 stores throughout the south of England, and then roll that out through all stores. Asda are collecting mixed flexibles in their major stores, and Aldi are piloting the collection of mixed flexibles in 20 stores, and then intend to roll that out. Similarly with Morrison's and Lidl and other majors, we would see Waitrose, M&S. We see this move from, although PE monopolymer is to the fore at the present, we're now seeing initiatives in the absence of government leadership in curbside home collection, that the retailers are really driving this forward. Just to add to the burden of suppliers, the UK government will be bringing in the plastics tax in April 22. The UK government have determined to push through the legislation whereby they'll add £200 per tonne tax on imported and home produced plastics that contain less than 30% recycled content. So obviously that complements the RAP target for 2025. So this is really this and the extended producer responsibility initiative that I'm going to talk about as well puts a lot of pressure on what is quite even though I've talked about a significant recovery in the packaging market and the overall economy, this is just putting extra burden on packaging suppliers in the UK. It is somewhat mitigated on the plastics tax that the administrative burden for plastic importers and the UK producers, that they've recognised this, and the government proposes an exemption for companies importing or producing less than 10 tonnes of plastic packaging per annum. So that might be a target get out clause for a number of companies. But even more significant, we have the extended producer responsibility legislation that's coming up. It's planned to be introduced in 2024. Basically, it's a scheme whereby it amounts to the packaging producer importer paying the full cost of managing packaging in the waste stream. And the government believes that this will lead to less packaging use and more recyclable materials, and in turn reducing the amount of hard to recycle packaging. So, you know, I think we're actually still in consultation. The target was to be concluded in June, but I think DEFRA are still inviting further comments. But this is going to be a significant challenge to the packaging suppliers within the UK. So the sustainability outlook within the UK. So increased investment in recycling of cardboard, paper, corrugate, PET bottles, plastics, rigids, steel, aluminium, glass, tin, etc. So these are the success stories in sustainable packaging solutions. But even though it's success, relative success, the actual household packaging waste that's being recycled. So the latest figures for the financial year 2019-2020 is an increase of only 1%, less than 1%, on what was the previous year 44.7% of packaging recycled. So this is home domestic waste, packaging waste. So it's gone from 44.7% to 45.5%. So we need to continue investing in these sustainable packaging materials to increase the recycling and recovery. Relative to Germany, you know, it's quite a poor performance. Where there they have 67% recovery. But of course, all this needs to be led by government, and they have been absent in their investment in this area to date. Maybe things are changing now. But we need significant investment in flexibles recycling. At present, only 4% of plastic flexibles from domestic waste is recycled. So we've talked about the retailer initiatives. So monopolymers are recyclable, but not all widely recycled. But the PE currently is the monopolymer that's being recycled, currently front of store. And that includes barrier PEs, like in EVOH, that you'll see maybe in an area that I've worked a lot in, which is, you know, coffee and tea packaging. You can also recycle metallized EVOH. But as we go into 2022, with polypropylene, you might get the barriers, so the polypropylene increasingly recycled. You would also get PPEVOH, but you can bring in the silicon oxides and other barrier variables there. So it can be a bit more optimistic as we open this up, and by 23-24, flexible PET, mixed plastics, laminates are going to be widely collected. We already see these schemes now with retailers being piloted. It'll be more widely seen throughout retail in the UK, but eventually we need to be moving to curbside home collection, which will make a significant difference. So the food and drink industry is moving plastics to recyclable PE and polypropylene monopolymers. So that's happening at the moment. That's what companies are doing. So the medium-term strategic move to alternative sustainable packaging options. So the packer fillers manufacturers will have programs where they're looking to exit plastics wherever they see the opportunity, because of the pressures from government, from the retailers and such like. We already see in Tesco the reduction of use of plastics in multi-packs and such like. So, you know, replaced by cardboard. So you'll see the polymers, you know, moving to paper-based solutions. There's barrier papers out there which are alternatives. But actually, as much as plastics use is going to be in decline until the domestic collection is commonplace, we can look forward to domestic collection of flexibles being the game changer that it is, possibly by 2025. So we have no real government investment or will to change things in this area, but it's led to flexible plastic packaging not being collected domestically. However, Suez and also Biffa, leading UK waste collection and processing companies, are proposing to change this. Suez Recycling and Recovery UK is working with brands to set up out a roadmap on how better to recycle plastic flexible packaging. And Suez have set out that roadmap in a report mapping the value chain for flexible plastic packaging in the UK. They're working with a packaging consortium, and they've already proposed, and they're going to government with this lobbying, whereby they will be collecting mixed plastics efficiently from homes and then processing all of that. They've talked about the nominal cost that would cost, that would be impacting UK households, and it's really it is a nominal cost, less than £100 per annum. So there is the prospect of things changing in the UK from poor recycling performance on plastics currently to increased retailer involvement that we're seeing now, and then eventually, you know, government, local councils, and leading waste processing organisations coming together by 2025 to, as I say, make that game changer. So coming on to how best to engage with the UK packaging buyers. So the main thing is to research the category and the company. So, you know, what's happening in that category where the target companies are operating, you know, whether it can be pet food, snacks, confectionery, beverages, chilled, frozen, grocery. I mean, they're all very, very different. And, you know, what are the target customer activities? You know, their sustainable packaging aims, what markets are they aiming to expand into? And that information is often freely available on the company websites. You can dig into LinkedIn, a lot of information in there, and social media, and that also in publications. So you can learn an awful lot about the target companies and, you know, what operations and what their strategic development program ambitions are. So tailor the offering. So, you know, for your company, you know, you have a number of packaging structures and specifications to offer, but what structures are best suited to the target customer? You know, price alone won't win the business. It's going to be all about, you know, the sustainability and the quality and the supply, you know, the robustness of the supply. So also link the packaging offering to what the company's existing packing lines capabilities are, you know, and the machine manufacturers that they are already partnering, you know, companies like, for instance, EMA or Bosch or whatever. So understand how your packaging will fit in with that, and ensuring that line efficiencies are either maintained or improved. So that's very important in the dialogue with the target customer. So prepare an information pack to go to the target customer with. I've also found in my experience that a questionnaire works well. I've received questionnaires from prospective suppliers, and really, you know, the kind of like questions like, do you require sustainable packaging solutions? Are you intending to comply with the RAP 2025 commitments? Do you require, you know, a lean supply chain, just in time? It's all about kind of these, they're almost rhetoric questions, but you'll be answering that question for what are their needs, and you will obviously have been well prepared in meeting those needs. Supply samples, and also again focus on the continuity of supply, quality, and sustainability, business sustainability and environmental packaging sustainability, and engage with the identified decision makers. So as much as the packaging buyers are the obvious individuals that packaging suppliers deal with on a day-to-day basis, behind them are not necessarily the people that make the decisions of who the new suppliers are going to be, as the supplier base is evolving and appraised. So it can often be like packaging development, project managers, R&D operations. You have sustainability departments these days, development engineering, technical manager, it might be quality. Any or maybe a number of those departments will be leading the packaging development program, and it won't be the packaging buyer who will make the decision or identify the prospective suppliers. So it's very important that when engaging with these businesses, you understand who will be the decision makers behind the procurement department and the packaging buyers. And then at the end of all of that, you're supplying the trial materials and partner in the validation process. So that's the end of the conclusion of my presentation. I thank you for your attention, and I'll be handing you back over to Kevin.
Thanks, Andrew. Great overview of the sector, and I'm sure some great insights. Share my screen here now, so we have a number of questions coming in, and answers over the next few minutes. If you have any more questions, please pop them in the questions tab, and we'll be sure to get to them over the next few minutes. And any questions we can't cover on our webinar today, we will follow up with an answer over email. So the first question I have for you, Andrew, is touching on those RAP and CFLEX guidelines you mentioned earlier. They're something we discuss a lot when we're speaking with our enterprise learning clients, and I'm just kind of wondering, and the question is, how do they impact your development from a packaging development manager's perspective, and how are they considered in the companies you've worked for when looking at packaging options?
Thank you for that, Kevin. So prior to RAP, then there would be companies that were on the sustainability agenda and were clued up, would be working on carbon footprint and life cycle assessments, looking at air miles, water burden, all of these things, carbon neutrality. But actually this has all been overtaken by RAP and CFLEX. So RAP has become the only show in town. So everything else that is kind of science-based and technical understanding of sustainable packaging solutions, that's all parked now. It's all about the RAP targets being met. And this is problematic actually, but the fact is, it's the only show in town. Retailers demand it, which means it filters down through the supply chain, and it's kind of non-negotiable. So whatever program was in place in the preceding years, in the last 18 months, 12 months, and for the next until 2025 and possibly beyond, RAP and CFLEX is the focus of the packaging development programs, and these are well advanced now. So companies will already have their development programs in place to comply from 2021 planned in, and they'll be introducing new suppliers and such, like identifying new suppliers who can meet these requirements, 22, bringing them into production 23, 24, and then switching over production, 100% of production by the 2025. Lots of companies will stretch that till the end of 25. But that's the fact of the matter. As much as we would like a holistic view, we'd like it to be science-based rather than emotional and political. unfortunately, that's not the game. RAP is the be all and end all.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. And another topic that's come in is Brexit, and obviously for our clients, our packaging clients who are supplying to the UK, Brexit is a particular concern, and it still continues to be an issue as we see delays to delivery times in the UK. And I'm just interested to hear, we'd say, how Brexit is viewed at the other side of the table. So in your experience working for UK food and drink companies, how would you consider Brexit, and how much of a factor was it in your packaging decisions?
Okay, I think that in the UK, the 2020, there was a lot of resource put into place in partnership with packaging suppliers to ensure that risks associated with Brexit and continuity of supply were mitigated. So a lot of people and the packaging suppliers that are already, that are on this call, that are already supplying the UK, would have spent a lot of time with their customers working on this. And actually, it's been a big success. I think that it was a bit like the millennium fear of what's going to happen, on midnight on the last day of the century, that come January the 1st, it was going to be like no computers running. Well, with Brexit, there was lots of unknowns, but the risks were mitigated, and actually increased stocks were in place. The admin burden was tricky to begin with, but now being managed effectively. And I think that due to the good work of the customers and the suppliers in partnership, it was not seamless, but it was effective management of that change. And now, as we go into, we're basically, moving from Q2 into Q3, there's only optimism in the UK. Regardless of the politics, things have not fallen apart. The economy is recovering. Food and beverages are doing extremely well, as retail and e-commerce are doing very well. And e-commerce is going to continue at similar levels. But we've got food service, out of home, hospitality. I think just positivity. So we've come through the Brexit challenges basically unscathed. The administrative burden is manageable and will get better because there's a will to make that more lean and easier to manage. So, I feel that we've gone through that phase, but as I've described in my presentation, Brexit is then a catalyst for, well, hang on a minute, we have this supply chain. We need to ensure in business continuity that we have robust supply looking forward. So that is another reason to be reappraising the supply chain. So if you're being supplied from Greece or India or far afield, they're looking closer. They're looking in my mind, this is the dialogue that Irish packaging suppliers can engage with UK companies with, because clearly Ireland has many advantages over the wider global suppliers and EU packaging suppliers, in my mind and in my experience.
Great. And we just have a question coming in touching on something you mentioned earlier. We'd say around the speaking to buyers through a questionnaire or sending through a questionnaire is quite a novel way to engage with clients. And one of the attendees is just wondering, in what format would you suggest sending that questionnaire through? Is it generally online? Is it generally sent through on paper? How did that come across your desk?
Yeah, that's a great question. In my experience, it came through in paper. But obviously, I didn't really go into that the engagement with the prospective customer, obviously telephone calls, there's an email. We're now coming out of COVID, people can travel, so can visit and such like. But basically, probably it would be both. I've received hard copies because it's quite a inviting document with diagrams and pictures and such like. It's not just a bland questionnaire, but clearly those questions are answered by the prospective supplier and say, well, this is what we can do. It can even lead to, are you investing in future on additional lines, and are you going into other categories, and that, the discipline is not going too far in those questions, but you can, in the dialogue with the decision maker engaging with, which may be procurement, packaging, buying, or it may be the packaging development or other departments that I talked about. You kind of, through that dialogue, know what that questionnaire should be made up of. Just, but yeah, a hard copy, but it can go through email as well.
Okay. And another question coming in there: how can smaller packaging suppliers, so like many of ours on the line today, compete with your larger multinational packaging suppliers like your Constantias of the world? How would you view them getting an angle into the UK market?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I love that question, because it's all about partnership and shared values. So many companies, it may suit them to work with multinational larger companies, but in responsiveness, in dynamic packaging development, it may not meet all of the needs. If multinationals have many customers, and they work with the big organizations like Procter and Gamble, Unilever, Mars, Nestle, and such like, but they also supply smaller companies. But those smaller companies, like for instance Taylor's, they're not a big player in the, they're a big player in tea and coffee, but they're not a big player in grocery overall. And working with companies like Amcor and such like, you might not, Amcor have many customers who would be prime candidates for the first development solutions. And in shared values, you can't kid yourself that if it's a packer filler that's an SME in itself, but they're going to be front of the queue. So the customers that the Irish packaging suppliers will be identifying will be companies that are looking for suppliers that are not the multinational big ones. They're looking for companies that they can work with in partnership. And actually the competition isn't the multinationals, it's more the SME packaging suppliers in the UK, because there's many of them, and they're supplying, it's in that market there's many diverse food and beverages companies that are medium and small size, contract packers, many doing, you've got manufacturers in private label. It's a great opportunity. And so it's like, so I don't think that's an obstacle. I think that the main thing to focus on is, mutual interests and shared values. So you identify the company who will be also looking, that's the prospective customer, but who will also be looking within their supplier base, companies that are, responsive and able to support them over the medium long term. That's what it's all about.
Right, and just conscious of time here, maybe our last question. And speaking of supply chains and suppliers, can you discuss a bit more about those supply chain reviews you mentioned earlier? I'm sure many of our customers or many of our clients are involved in those now, as companies potentially review their EU suppliers and look maybe towards the UK, which would obviously be a fear of our companies. What's involved in a supply chain review, and any advice around those?
The supply chain review is about reviewing and assessing new suppliers whilst assessing the incumbent suppliers. So it's those incumbent suppliers may be being phased out as the new suppliers are brought in. The first thing is the appraisal of them in their capabilities, in packaging supply, in quality, service, price, and in business continuity. In that, I was talking about the shared values and such like. The supplier is then probably individuals at different levels are meeting. There'll be visits, appraisal of the site, not necessarily an audit, but just weighing up the prospective supplier. And then it leads then to taking first deliveries. There'll be trials and validation, taking first deliveries, and then building from there, building the business. But the supply chain review at present on because of business continuity, Brexit, COVID, sustainability, just means that it's not a closed door. There's an open door to talk to the UK customers, but particularly I think it's relevant from Irish suppliers. I really do.
Great, that's really interesting, and I think that's all we really time for. And of course, if any of our attendees have any questions following today's presentation, just drop me a line over email. I'm sharing my email address now, and we can get Andrew to get in touch with you and answer them. And again, thanks for your time, Andrew. It takes a brave Englishman to stand in front of an Irish audience after the results on Sunday, but I appreciate you taking your time. And yeah, we won't touch on football a bit too much. Maybe on the next webinar we might be a bit more critical.
All I can say is thank you, Kevin, and thanks everyone. And also, as much as the football is the football, I'm looking forward to glorious Goodwood next week.
There you go. And you will see on my screen the contact details for myself. And if you'd like to follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn to see any upcoming events from Enterprise Ireland in the UK, that would be much appreciated. And of course, following this webinar, I will be sharing the presentation and slides and a recording of the webinar if any of your colleagues would like to watch back. And thanks again to you, Andrew, and thanks for everyone for jumping online today. Really appreciate it. And that's going to wrap up today's webinar. And any questions, just fire them over. And thanks again. See you, Andrew. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.